Hello to everyone and welcome to the RANsquawk weekly wrap. So firstly, just going to take a look at the main events this weekend, so that's the Greek and French elections, and then we're going to take a look ahead to next week and the key events going forward. So firstly, just taking a look at the elections scheduled for this weekend, so that's namely the second round of the French presidential election and also the Greek general election. So firstly, just taking a look at Greece, there is quite a bit of uncertainty around this. This is partly because there's been no polls in recent times. Under Greek law, there is a blackout, so the 2 weeks leading up to the election, they're not allowed to publish any official polls. But in unofficial polling, it suggested that a lot of the Greek people are now going to be voting for smaller parties and independents. Now, the problem with this is that by June the 30th of this year, Greece needs to pass further austerity measures. They need to cut spending by a further 13 billion euros. In order to do this, this has to be passed through Parliament and they have to have set up a complete government. Now, these smaller parties and independents, a lot of them are unwilling to be part of a coalition and also unwilling to pass through these extra austerity measures. So if they become in power and have a large stake in government, they may reject or veto the vote to create more austerity, again causing more uncertainty. The other problem is if Greece fails to create a government, they'll have to have a second round of elections, and this would have to take place by the 10th of June. Now, at the moment, the two leading parties are the PASOK party and also the New Democracy party. It's worth of note that there are 300 seats in Greek Parliament, and there are 250 seats up for grabs on Sunday. The party that gets the most number of votes is given a bonus 50 seats, so it's likely there will be a majority party, but the vote split will be quite important. If it's the major parties getting a lot of the votes, then it's likely these austerity measures will go through. However, if a lot of smaller parties and independents come through, this will create quite a lot of uncertainty. Now, the market impact on this is that it could cause quite a bit of volatility and also some risk-off sentiment. Now, this is mainly because if Greece don't meet the terms set aside by the IMF, so these further austerity measures, they're unlikely to receive the next tranche of aid, and this could potentially, worst case scenario, see them kicked out of the Eurozone. So if there is a lot of vote split on Sunday and a lot of the major parties lose a lot of the votes, this could cause a bit of a market reaction come Monday. Now, in terms of the French presidential elections on Sunday, I think this will be slightly less volatile. We've already seen the first round of French presidential elections, which saw Hollande get most of the votes, or the majority of the votes. And so he is leading in the polls at the moment, around 52% to his name, Sarkozy trailing somewhat at 48%. However, Sarkozy could clinch it at the last moment. There's no absolute cemented that Hollande will win on Sunday. Is just more likely considering the polls at the moment. Now, for Hollande, if he wins, he will meet Merkel the next day, and he has talked about renegotiating the fiscal compact. So this is the main point of his agenda that's causing a bit of market uncertainty. There is an informal summit at the end of this month. It's likely if he goes through, this will be discussed at the end of May. So it'll be interesting to see those results on Sunday night, Monday morning. In terms of the Greek results, they will be quite late on in the evening. However, they will take a sample and release a sample of the results around 3 o'clock London time. So that will give an initial indication of how those votes have gone through. In terms of the French election, it's more likely we'll see it in the morning on Monday. But in terms of the elections, they're the main points. It is worth of note, however, there is a German state election. We've got North Rhine-Westphalia election on the 13th of May, so that's a week on Sunday. And we've also got Italian mayoral elections coming up, so there's quite a lot of political events going on in the Eurozone at the moment. But for now, that's it in terms of the elections. Now let's take a look at next week and the key events going forward. So just to take a look ahead to next week and the key bits of data going forward, it looks to be slightly less busy than this week, but in terms of England or the UK, we've got the Bank of England rate decision and asset purchase target decision on Thursday the 10th of May. Now, it's worth of note that at the last MPC meeting, the results showed it was slightly more hawkish than markets had been anticipating, with Archdove Adam proposing actually not voting in favour of further purchases. Last week, the Bank of England did reach their target of £325 billion worth of asset purchases. So that current programme has now finished, which is why this meeting is quite important on whether they're going to increase this or not. Analysts are slightly mixed on this. Quite a few are expecting around 25 billion increase, some 50, some no change at all. The key bits of data that have been important recently in the UK have been the GDP reading, which came in worse than expected, was forecast at plus 0.2%, came in as a contraction of 0.2%. However, the MPC had forecast a worsening in the GDP data. There has also been a slight decline in activity data from the UK as well. So all this looks to add more uncertainty. It is difficult to predict at this stage. It'll be interesting to see the data at the first half of next week. So that's the main point coming out of the UK, the Bank of England rate decision and asset purchase target on Thursday. It is worth a note as well, on Thursday night we've got the Chinese CPI number. That's currently expected at plus 3.6%, and that'll be key going ahead into Friday, as any sort of beat or miss could determine market direction going ahead to the end of the week. But in terms of the main points, that's it for next week. The Bank of England rate decision and the Chinese CPI on Thursday. And as already mentioned in the first half of this video, we do have the North Rhine-Westphalia state elections in Germany on the 13th, so that's on Sunday. But for the time being, that's enough from me for this week. Hope you have a very pleasant weekend. As usual, we'll join you bright and early on Monday morning. But in the meantime, have yourself a very pleasant weekend.